Hi everyone, today's video is going to be kind of the sequel of what I did yesterday. So yesterday, I talked about my very favorite shades in all of my palettes. So today I'm going to talk about my least favorite shades. I did forget to mention two palettes yesterday, so they're going to be in today's video. But I just forgot to grab them because they were in different places. And one was stuck behind my drawer. That happens sometimes if you have Alex drawers. Sometimes the makeup can slide back behind them. And I didn't realize it until I'd finished filming the video. But anyway, like I did yesterday, I'm just going to pull and figure it out once I look at it. I feel like this is going to be harder than my favorites, but let's figure it out. So first we're going to start with Kat Von D Esperanza. My least favorite shade in this palette is probably Archangel. I do like it. It's really pretty. It's kind of a seafoam, but it's a little more white than some other ones, and I feel like sometimes it's not really deep enough to show up on the lid as well as I would like, if that makes sense. Or not deep enough, but it doesn't have enough pigment of that green, and so sometimes I don't feel like it shows up exactly how I'd like. Next we have the Stila Eyesahdow Window Body Palette. It's probably the shade I'm actually panning, called Emerald. I'll be honest, I haven't played with a lot of the shades in here, but this shade is patchy, and it's never as pigmented as I want it to be, and it's like a blackened blue, which doesn't sound like a big deal, except for a lot of times it doesn't show up as blue as I want. Like I feel like a lot of deeper shades sometimes don't give as much pigment and they just show up that black base on the eyes. Next we have the Too Faced I Believe in Pink palette. This is a pretty standard palette. So maybe, I guess, Pink Christmas. Just because a lot of time, like this light pink, it just, again, just blends in so much with my skin tone that it just kind of looks glittery and not how I want on the lid. I like a really impactful shade for my lid usually, and that just doesn't quite give it to me, but it's so much glitter that it's hard to really use it anywhere else. Next, the Too Faced, Anastasia Beverly Hills Maya Mia palette. I really like this palette. Again, this is probably a lot harder. For eyeshadow, it's probably the shade Deep Brown because it's really saturated and pretty. And I use it in my eyebrows actually like every day. But you can see in a swatch, it is patchy. So if you're trying to apply it like in the outer V or something, it shows up really patchy and doesn't blend very nicely. In the eyebrows, it's great. But in the, if you want to use it on your actual eye, like lid, it's just not so awesome. Oh, that's a blush palette. Whoopsies. Then I have the Lorac Tale as Old as Time palette. I definitely know my least favorite in this palette. It would be the shade Real You. It is a pink with a bunch of silver glitter. Very similar to that Pink Christmas shade. It just doesn't show up on the lid. See, there's Pink Christmas. It's a little more pink, but on the lid, it just looks kind of like I don't have anything on. I don't like it. It falls out a lot. It's really hard to get pigmentation. Not a fan. I have the Tarte Tartist Pro palette. And in here, my least favorite shade will probably be the shade Profesh, because I always reach for it in my crease, because it's kind of a, I don't know, like a purpley brown. It's pretty, and it swatches really well. It's very pigmented, but it doesn't blend nicely at all. It blends really patchy, and I don't like the way that looks. So I guess that'd be my least favorite. Then we have the Tarte Rainforest After Dark palette. I don't know. There's like 6 shades in here. Probably the shade Bare to Explore, which is this matte light pink. And right now I'm a little more tan than I usually am just because it is summer. But you see, it's not really deep light enough to use as a brow bone highlight, but it also isn't exactly what I want for a lid shade. It's a little too light for a crease shade, so it's just kind of an awkward in-between shade that I don't really know what to do with. So probably that. Next we have the BH Cosmetics Enhancing Eyes for Gorgeous Green Eyes. And my least favorite shade in here is probably this one, which is the shade So Luxurious. It swatches nicely. It's like a really pretty purpley pink. It's really powdery, as you can even tell in the swatch, and it has a ton of fallout. And again, it just doesn't give me as much impact on the lid as I like, but I can't really use it anywhere else in my eye look. So I just don't love that. Then we have the H&M Aubergine Dream palette. My least favorite is probably this center one. It is a deep burgundy with some gold glitter. And it is really patchy. And I don't know. I feel like on the eyes, it just looks brown. And it's just never as cool as I really want it to be. So I guess that would be my least favorite. Like I said, a lot of palettes, I don't have a shade I hate by any means. I don't know, especially because I've done a declutter recently. I don't know. So this is the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani palette. My least favorite shade in here would probably be the shade Pop. Now, in theory, I really like it. It's a chunky shade with some gold. It's really pretty in a swatch. But it's not quite the Moondust formula, but almost. And it just doesn't really show up on the eyelids. You're having to build and build. Now, I think if, a glitter glue will definitely help that. But still, it just doesn't show up quite as nicely as I'd like it to on the eyelid. Then we have the Makeup Forever Artist Palette Volume 2. And, I don't know. Probably this one, which is S924. Because it looks just like gorgeous eggplant. But again, like I've said a couple of times, it's patchy, like a lot of darker shades. And it shows up just kind of black on the lid. It doesn't show that really intriguing purple, which I don't like. If it's going to be a purple shade, I want it to look purple on the lids. Then we have the Smashbox Art Love Color Volume 4. This is definitely the shade C. In the pan, sorry, this is a huge palette. In the pan, C is absolutely gorgeous. But again, it's one of those really flaky, kind of chunky shades that on the lid just don't perform as well as I'd like them to. And you can see, like, much more so even than Pop, it just doesn't have any, like, base color to it. So because of that, it just kind of is nothing on the lid. So I don't love that. The Besame Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs palette. I'm going to go with the shade Pastel 6. It's a really pretty light yellow. It's the shade of her dress. But, like I've said, it's just kind of a weird shade. It doesn't show up as yellow as I really want it to when you put it on the eyes. And besides that, like, it's not deep enough to go in the crease. It might be cool to, like, kind of blend out and add some yellow. But it's a really light shade and it's matte. So it's just kind of hard to work with. I don't know. Like I said, some of these they're just really hard because I like so much of these palettes. So this is the Sephora Watercolor palette. And my least favorite shade in here would probably be the shade Rose Quartz. It's this really pretty, I'm sorry, you can't even see what I'm doing, light pink. Because again, it's too pink to be a brow bone highlight for me, but it's too light to really be anything else. So, and very rarely, I know you could use it as a lid shade, but I very rarely do all matte looks. So because of that, no. Then we have my Urban Decay Alice in Wonderland, and my least favorite shade is definitely the shade Dream On. Now, if you have a glitter glue, this shade is amazing. It's super purple and glittery. But without a glitter glue, it just doesn't do much at all, as you can see in the swatch. It doesn't really show up very colorful or impactful. That base purple isn't really there. But again, if you do have a glitter glue, which you can buy them from e.l.f., you can buy one from NYX, you can buy them all over. It's a beautiful shade with a glitter glue, but you need a glitter glue. Then I have the Urban Decay Ammo palette. And probably my least favorite shade in here would be the shade Oil Slick. It's a black with a lot of silver glitter. Now, I pretty much use deep shades to be my eyeliners. I very rarely wear pencil liner on the lid. And it's a nice black, but it's just not great. And I don't know, I know a lot of people like to have a black in their eyeshadow, and that's fine, in their palette. I mean, that's fine if that's you. But I don't really care that much about having a black. Like I said, I use it as a eyeliner, but I can use pretty much any dark shade for that. Today I have on brown, but it's just okay. Then I have the Sephora Minnie's World in Color palette. And there's a couple in here, but I think my least favorite is going to be the shade Starlet. Because when you're actually using this on the lid, it takes a ton of building up. It's a really pretty light pink with some gold shift. I like it in a swatch. I really like it in the pan, but you have to wet your brush and keep building and keep building and keep building to get it to look like anything on the eyelid. And that's what really matters because you're wearing it on your eyelid. You're not just like wearing swatches around the house. Well, maybe around the house, but not out in public. Next, we have the Too Faced Super Fun Night palette. This is, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard to really dislike anything in this palette. It's kind of a plain palette. But if I had to choose one, I guess I'm going to go with Cozy Cashmere. Because again, it's just like these baby pinks. They're pretty. But that's too deep to be a brow bone highlight and too light to be a crease shade or a transition. So I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with that. I mean, I have a cool skin tone, but I don't know what to do with that. Okay, I'm going to start swatching with my left hand, so they're going to get bad. Can't help it. The Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette. My least favorite shade in this palette is probably the shade Lucid. Because, again, it's a chunky shimmer without enough base shade, in my opinion, to give it as much impact. I mean, its swatch is really pretty, but you can see that there's a lot of bare space. So if you want to use it, it's like a greeny gold. It's really pretty. But if you want to use it all over the lid, you need a glitter glue or something tacky. Because just putting it over there and packing it on, it's not going to stay as well as I would like it to. Okay, sorry. Got to keep on reaching for my palettes. We got a lot to go. Kat Von D Interstellar palette. I've used this a few times, and a lot of times I will admit, I don't like the look. This is definitely one that I'm very much considering decluttering, even besides the whole Kat Von D issue. But my least favorite is probably this middle one called Vast. It's a pretty taupe. It is. But it's got like a purple shift to it, which makes it, I don't know, I think it's interesting. But it's not a kind of lid shade for me. I very rarely wear taupe all over the lid. And anywhere else, it's too shimmery to do anything. It's interesting, but it's just not my favorite. So, Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. Here we are. My least favorite shade in this palette. Would probably be, like, I'm going to go with Almond Truffle. But it's really just because Almond Truffle and Mocha are so similar. Like, yes, technically Almond Truffle is a little lighter and it's pink, a little more pink. But on the eyelid, it's gonna look the same, y'all. It really is. So I hate when palettes have the same or virtually the same shade in them. I don't like that. The MAC Nutcracker Sweet Cool Eye Compact. Here we are. This shade, the fourth shade, which is Marzipan. It's a gray, a purpley gray that is really, really light. And again, it's just an awkward shade. Like, I guess, you know, I can use that in my crease because it is a little deeper, but it's just not great. And that palette in general is just not great. They don't blend as well as I'd like them to. Then I have my Too Faced Clover palette right here. And my favorite, my least favorite shade in this palette would probably be Lucky Clover, honestly. I like it. It's really pretty in the pan. It's an interesting shade. It swatches really nicely. But it doesn't show up on the lid. It doesn't give you a green look. It just kind of is like, oh, I have a color, but like it doesn't look green. And I want it to look green because it's a green eyeshadow. So, don't love it. Stila Tin Pan Eyeshadow Palette. My least favorite is going to have to be Azure because it's just too dark And it's patchy. Like, look at how bad that is. It's just not good. And like I said, sometimes it doesn't really show blue. It shows too black on the lid, which there's nothing wrong with a black eyeshadow, but if you want a blue, you want it to look blue. And it's just not good. I have much, much better blacks in my collection. Next, we have the shade the Moondust palette. My least favorite shade is definitely Specter. Specter is another one of those really glittery kind of toppery shades, but it doesn't have enough base color in it. So on the lid, it just doesn't do much. Swatched, again, gorgeous, but on the lid, you need a glitter glue. You have to have a glitter glue with this whole palette. But even with one, it just doesn't show up enough. It doesn't have enough of that pink base that it just kind of looks like you got some glitter on your eyes and it doesn't show up how I want it. These are my collection of ColourPop singles. Again, I really want to buy 5 more to fill up this palette, but my least favorite one that I have right now is definitely this middle one, which is Tiki. It's a really pretty yellow, and you're like, girl, what's wrong with that? It doesn't show up. It's really powdery, and yeah, it looks great in a swatch, but if you try to put that all over your lid, it doesn't show up. It looks like you don't have anything on your lid at all. So it's always disappointing whenever I reach for that. The Urban Decay Smoked palette. My least favorite shade in this palette is probably the shade Asphalt right here, because it's a very deep gray. It's not a black. It doesn't shouldn't be a black. And it's very shimmery. And I will sometimes do dark all over the lid, like a really deep smoky eye. There it is. But it's rare. I don't usually like that. I like a lighter shade on the lid. And like I said, it's so dark and shimmery, it's hard to use anywhere else on your eyes. So it's just a weird shade, because unless you want to use it all over your lid and have a really dark eye, you can't really use it anywhere else. All right. Let me keep on grabbing. Urban Decay Electric Palette. This is hard because there's 2 shades in here that I really hate. My least favorite, it's probably Chaos. Chaos is so patchy. Beautiful in a swatch. Yes, give me that blue. I love it in a swatch, but whenever I try to apply it to the lid, it is so patchy, and I can't make it look good, and I hate it. So it's my least favorite. Next, we have the Too Faced Sugar Pop palette. My least favorite in here is the shade Peach Fizz. It's a matte with glitter in it, which nobody likes those shades, really. Like, let's just be honest. And again, like, what are you going to do with that? I don't want glitter on my brow bone. I like a matte brow bone highlight, and it's orange. But on the lid, it doesn't look like anything. So it's just a weird shade. Don't love it. The Too Faced Smoky Eyes palette. And similar to Asphalt, we have in here Nice Ash. And I just don't really... Hold on. I'm between Nice Ash and Firefly. But I think I'm going to go with Nice Ash. Because, again, really pretty. It's very similar. Maybe even a little bit darker than Asphalt. But it's too dark for my lid. You could use it in the outer corner, I guess. But I don't know. It's just a weird shade. And this is a very dark palette. I keep it because of that silver and that white. But there's a lot in there I don't love. The Lime Crime Venus palette. Oh, this is going to be hard because I really like this entire palette. I find it hard to find faults in this palette. Honestly and truly, I do. Wow. I don't know, y'all. Sorry. I'm trying to make y'all see it. If anything, I'm gonna say that if we're being honest, I think Venus and Creation are a little too similar. So the shade Creation is more brown, Venus is more red. But they're similar. And again, even though, yes, you can find slight differences, on the lid they're going to look really similar. So I hate that they have both of those shades in the same palette. Just because, you know, you have one palette, you want it to have as much variety as possible. Kat Von D Pastel Goth. Least favorite shade, Dagger. This matte gray. Now it is unique, I'll give it that. You can't fault the uniqueness of it. And it's almost got like some green in it. but it's patchy. It's really patchy and never looks right. And again, I mean, I used it in the crease, and it's really patchy there, and I don't really know where else to use it. I mean, I've used it all over the lid too, and gosh, that's a mess. So it's just weird. The Beauty Treats 24 Matte Palette. I do like this palette a lot. I feel like the colors are all pretty decent, honestly. Now some of these mattes can be patchy for sure. Probably my least favorite would be this deep warm brown, because like I said, it's pretty, but it's not as pigmented as you want, and you can see how it doesn't like to blend. They're hard to blend sometimes, but they're really great, and I really recommend that palette. Kat Von D Me Vida Loca Remix. The shade down here, Fran. Again, I don't know if I just have like way too high expectations of these mustardy shades. They swatch so nicely, but I don't ever like the way it looks on the lid. It looks like nothing, or it just doesn't show up as yellow on the eye as I want it to. So that's probably my least favorite. Okay, Too Faced Sweet Peach Palette. Oh, this is a pretty palette too. Oh. I'm gonna have to say my least favorite is probably, oh, it's so hard. Probably the shade Peaches and Cream. It's a creamy matte, but again, it's orange. It's similar to that Sugar Pop shade without the glitter, so it does make it better. But it's just an awkward shade because I can't use that as a transition. I mean, maybe I could use it as a transition, but I don't know. It's just too light for a lot of things, but not dark enough for others. And I don't like it on the lid because it looks too close to my skin tone. Next, we have the Too Faced Masterclass Volume 3 palette. This is a really good palette. I like the 3 better than the 4. But the shade Sky, this light blue, I always want it to look as good as it does. But you can tell it's just really white. And on the lid, because that's how I use it, it doesn't look like anything. But if you try to put that on your brow bone highlight, all of a sudden it's very blue. You look like an idiot. But on the lid, it's just not what I want it to be. And you can tell the pigmentation's not very strong either. The beautiful Lorac Dead Man Has No Tails palette. I'm going to say my least favorite shade is in here is Ghostly. And it's a matte white. And really, it's not that I don't like that. I think Ghostly is a bad shadow, because it's not. It's the fact that they have a matte white. And like, I guess you call it like a matte vanilla in the shade Matty. These are too similar in my opinion. I use them both as brow bone highlights. This one's a little more yellow and this one's a little more pure white. I do like Matty better, which is why I said Ghostly was my least favorite. But they're pretty much the same thing, y'all, and you don't need both of them in one palette. So I'd rather have had another shade in that palette as opposed to that. Okay, last stack. Okay. The Urban Decay Vice 4 palette. Least favorite shade in here is Harlow. It's really pretty though. It can be a lid shade. Don't get me wrong. It's that gorgeous. It's so pretty. See, it's hard. It's hard. Because I like pretty much all of these palettes. That's why I kept them. But it's just a little deep for a lid shade for me. Usually. Now I will wear it sometimes. And then on the outer V, it's just a little too shimmery for me. I like a like semi matte. It can have a little bit of shimmer, but that's a little shimmery. I do have a very shimmery shade on my outer V today. But I don't know. That's probably my least favorite, but I still really like it. That's kind of how some of these are. The Makeup Forever palette. This is the Christmas palette from 2015. My least favorite is gonna have to be this gray, because it's not silver, it's gray. I like a shimmery silver, but it's not, I don't know, it's weird. It's shimmery, but it's gray, and it's not as pigmented as I want. I don't really like it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the shade of that is S114, but that's their old formulation, but I just don't really like it. The Balm Cosmetics Rockstar Balm Jovi palette. My least favorite shade in here is probably Blink 182. I'm sorry, Blink 1982. It's pretty. It is pretty. Oh gosh. It's this really pretty purple, but it's got some glitter in it, and that glitter does fall out onto my face throughout the day. And also, to me, it's a little bit too deep to have that much glitter in it for me and my personal taste. But it is pretty. I like the Balm shadows, or what I've tried, which is only that palette, so I guess I can't really say I've tried that much. Urban Decay Full Spectrum palette. Really like this palette. It's beautiful. My least favorite shade in it is probably Calavera. And again, maybe I just don't have realistic expectations, y'all. But it's really pretty in a swatch. It's really pretty. But it just doesn't show up yellow enough on the lid. I never have a shade that's as yellow as I want it to be, is really the issue. And that one just isn't. But it's still a gorgeous palette. I love that palette. The Too Faced Natural Beauty palette. Right here. Again, I mean, there's not that much to it, but probably my least favorite shade would be Pretty Pecan. It's a warm tone brown. It's very shimmery. It's pretty. It's just kind of plain to me. Though this entire palette is kind of plain to me, to be honest. Next, we have this beauty, the Tarte Magic Star palette. And my least favorite shade is probably, thinking about when I actually use it, is probably Indulgence. Because in the pan, Indulgence is this beautiful purple with gold shimmer. I almost chose it as my favorite shade. I remember that. But when I really apply it, it's so pretty in a swatch. It's so pretty. But on the lid, that gold shift doesn't show up, and a lot of the pigment doesn't show up. Oh, it's really pretty, but that's probably my least favorite. Probably has to be. And last but not least, the Urban Decay Urban Spectrum palette. My least favorite shade in here is probably the shade Prank, because it's beautiful. But, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I'm sorry. It's just more matte. It's kind of got like a micro shimmer, as opposed to all these others, which are a lot more metallic. So I feel like it just doesn't really fit as well. I wish it had like a little bit more of a high shine finish, but it is still pretty. So that's all of my palettes. Those are my least favorite shades in all of my palettes. Like I said, I really love these palettes. I love makeup. It's hard to choose sometimes. It really is. I think it was easier to pick my favorite shades than my least favorite. But I hope you still found it fun and exciting, and you liked looking at my palettes again. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions, requests, suggestions, comments, go ahead and leave those down below. And I'll just see you real soon. Bye.